Good afternoon. This is Farmgirl Jo, and you're in our farmhouse kitchen, and thank you for joining me. Hey, listen, I want to encourage you to get started or even to add to your homesteading journey. So, homesteading can be, it doesn't have to be as big scale or as little scale. It's something that you do that you're more self-sufficient at. So, and not reliant on the system. So, I know 30 years ago that Ty and I were at Dover Air Force Base, and we have this little bitty small base house, and there was no garden, there was no opportunity for a garden. I did some container pots for a couple tomato plants and a pepper. But you know what I did? Every time I made dinner, because I love to cook, so every time I made dinner, I would save my vegetable scraps, just like my mom did. And I put it in the freezer in a bag. I still do it. Look, I still do it today. And so that's my onion, my garlic, my celery tops, my carrot tops, anything that's vegetable in that arena goes in this bag. And I put it in the freezer, and when I get enough or I need to make vegetable broth, I pull it out, put it in a crock pot, some filtered water, a little salt, and make vegetable broth. Now, back then I didn't have a canner. So it went into the freezer, and we bought a little tiny chest freezer. And we stuck it in the closet of the second bedroom of the base house, and that's where we put our stuff. And the same thing when we go to commissary and we'd buy groceries, and anytime that I'd always buy a whole chicken, never really pieces. And I'd buy a whole chicken, and then I'd save all those bones, and I'd put those in the freezer after I stripped all the meat off from roasting it. And then I would make chicken broth. And so then I got into a routine of always having chicken broth and vegetable broth. And now I do bone broth, and I utilize all the bones that we have from our animals, from the lambs to the beef to the chickens and even the rabbits, and we utilize it all. And so, but it's a system. And so creating a system, but then we left the military and we bought a house. Guess what? I could have a little garden. So we started with a little garden. And then we bought a bigger house, and I could have a bigger garden. And then we bought a different house that we had a little bit more land. We didn't have any restrictions. And so we ended up getting layers, and we started to raise our own. We had meat rabbits, and we started running meat hens and meat tractors, little chicken tractors in our backyard around the garden. And so all of a sudden we created this whole food system, but it didn't happen overnight. And we laid a foundation, and we built on that foundation. And now we do a lot of things without even thinking about it. Like today, I'm going to show you just some of the things that I'm working on today that I don't really think about it. It's just part of nature now as we move forward in what we do, and it'll become nature to you too. So for instance, you can see on my counter, I've got a lot of eggs. And so I'm gonna water glass those and put those in water glassing technique, and they're going into the pantry. And so I can save those for later in the wintertime when the hens aren't laying so great and I'm baking, and especially around the holidays, I'll pull those out and I'll use those eggs first versus my fresh eggs. And so the other part is you see some okra back here. Well, that okra was too big to can. I mean, you can't use that. It's huge. And it's tough. And so, but that's seed saving. So I'm going to very gently fillet those open, and I'm going to take those seeds out, and I'm going to dehydrate, like make those dry, just air dry. I have a pan that I use, and let those air dry. And all of a sudden I've got all my okra seeds going into next year, and from okra that was too big to use. And then I'm doing sourdough. You see in the corner, the covered bowl, that's my sourdough bread. That's the everyday loaf that we sell in the bakery. So I'm doing sourdough today. And then I've got canned okra and spaghetti, and I had a bunch of tomatoes that you can see it right here behind me, that it was enough to make 7 quarts of spaghetti sauce. So I've got some spaghetti sauce, and I've got some herbs that a friend of mine across the street, she's like, hey, I brought you a present. I love herbs. And so I'm like, oh, I'll get those dehydrated and I'll have those for later. And so some thyme and rosemary, which is like one of my favorites, and some oregano, thyme, and some rosemary. So those are things. And then also, let me turn this just to here. See that back there? That yellow blob of stuff? That is chicken fat. So when we processed our chickens this year, I harvested all of that fat because that's fat that I used to cook with. So we don't get seed oils. I do a little olive oil because I really, really like olive oil on my salad greens. But other than that, we use everything as either butter, which Maggie's dry now, but when she was in milk, we were able to put up some butter. So We got butter ready to have, and then all of our tallow. So those are things that we've done, but it's been a process year over year over year over year growing into that. So hey, listen, wherever you are, if you're in a tiny base house like we were 30 years ago, just grab your veggie scraps and start making your own broth. That alone can help you pull something off the commercial food chain and empower you to do that yourself. So hey, listen, till next time, this is Farmgirl Jo. Thanks for joining me in our farmhouse kitchen. And I better get busy because there's a lot of stuff to do back there on that counter. Hey, listen, have a good day and thank you for joining us. Make sure you like and share our page. We really appreciate it.